Hi, everyone. How are you?
We were scrambling.
Yes.
Computer issues.
Yeah.
Well, here we are.
Nothing new. So welcome, fans of the framework. We have the coolest topic ever today. Honest to goodness. So we're very excited about it. Primarily because, we get our great ideas from our partners and because they're absolutely unbelievably brilliant people. Yes. Hi, Andrea. And so I was on a recent coaching call, and the HR leader talked about the fact that, there seem to be red zones in organizations. And I said, well, what do you mean by red zones? And he said, those areas where the leader never takes the baton, the leader never actually says, oh yeah, that's a great idea that this team of employees gave me, or that senior leadership came up with, or that the steering team, or that the transformational journey team came up with to say, here you go. This is what evidence-based best practices are. This is a new way for you to communicate and be transparent. This is a new way for you to lead. They never really take the baton on that. And, without Sue and I even coaching this team, they were realizing that their red zones in their organization of these leaders that were not on board and not committed to the journey were also those places where the employee engagement scores were lower, where employees weren't coming to their CEO forums, where there appeared to be a lack of engagement with the journey by employees as well as leaders. Sure. It's catchy. And so I made the analogy, OMG. So when you think about the blue zone areas of our world where people live longer, right? Because to live in a blue zone automatically means that you have longevity in your life.
It must be a blue zone.
It's not. P.S.
It's God's country.
Yes, it's God's country, but it's not a blue zone. And so, but there's these blue zones, and so like the red zone's kind of the opposite. Blue zone means sustainability and longevity. So you won't be good to great to gone. That you will be good to great for forever. And the red zone means right? So. Is this dangerous, Susan Elaine?
Well, yeah, so what, right? So what? Is this dangerous? What does this mean?
Yes.
Well, for starters, it's a great observation, right? It really speaks to, the work of a steering team to pick this up.
Yep.
And, we can go back to our very first journeys and realize like when we first started seeing this, because you don't see it right away.
No.
So when you say, so what, or is it dangerous? Surprisingly, it's not so much of an issue in the first start, because you don't even need everybody involved to start. In fact, you should never wait till you have everyone involved to just start, because that's not how diffusion and adoption works. So innovation doesn't happen that way. So it's not like that old world of everybody's on board. We have consensus now, we'll start. So we start before everyone's on board. We start when everybody's in the red zone.
Right.
I mean, we start when everybody's in the red zone.
Because they're clueless.
Because we're just starting, right? Yeah. So it's not really so much dangerous, especially in the start. So some of you might, that are familiar with our work, we talk about our direct dialogue and how we get this, there's variation in how people behave, perform, and contribute. And there's the lowest and all the way to the highest, and there's variation. Well, this is kind of playing this out at a department or, group level, where we call them pockets, where there's pockets where it's not happening.
Right.
Okay. It's not happening. And so it's not dangerous in the beginning, but it gets dangerous later on. It gets dangerous later on. So you start to hit plateaus. Maybe you start to ask those teams and those departments that are doing well and carrying a lot of the weight of the transformation and the results to do more and more and more, and you fry your high performers or your departments, so there's the risk of that. That can cause your highest performing people to turn over. And so, this can have long-term consequences the further out you go in your journey. So, if you're not familiar with diffusion and adoption and how an innovation or a change, kind of spreads throughout a group of people, an individual, and then collectively as a group of people, you could read the work of my boyfriend, Everett Rogers. His work goes back to the 1960s. But sorry, Everett Rogers, it's pretty boring to read most of your stuff. So anyway,
we're way more exciting.
But there is this idea that it does take time for a new idea or innovation to diffuse into every pocket of every organization, that it's every employee, every department, everyone, every time that is, carrying out these new habits. So it does take time. But if you don't recognize where the pockets are, where these red zones are, then you can't put in specific tactics to have them adopt the innovation. So it's good to recognize them.
Absolutely.
So that then you can figure out why and what to do about it.
Sure.
I mean, that's really the thing. And I remember the first pocket we saw in an organization was the whole organization, all their data was going up and up and up and up. I mean, patient satisfaction leaped. I mean, double percentage increases each year, and employee engagement, every score on the survey was going up, right? Not just some, every score was going up. None went down for 2 years, right? On the overall level. But then when we looked at the departmental level, there were patients that hadn't moved at all in patient satisfaction or employee satisfaction, engagement, or quality. They didn't move at all. Now that could be hidden. Those red zones, those pockets are hidden or could be hidden because the overall data is so positive.
Right.
But just because you have overall amazing results doesn't mean that you don't have red zones. And what that also tells you is the red zones don't have to stop your journey or stop you from starting it or keeping going.
Right.
Because, in spite of them, you can do some amazing things as an organization, but long term, it is so bad for your culture. It is so bad for your people to not recognize these and do something about it.
Right.
So what do you do?
Well, it's as if the red zone leaders are below the surface, just stirring.
It is usually a leadership issue. Like the common denominator of why this happens is
leadership.
Is the leader doesn't grab the baton. They think it's the job of the teams. To make these changes happen, and they don't grab the baton to say, what is my role to make these changes happen in my people?
Well, Sue is a very positive person.
Yes.
Some leaders don't care.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yep.
So, benefit of the doubt, they didn't realize it was their responsibility.
So positive.
Always.
Okay, so 3 tips for you.
Always
the first one, I know that's my favorite number. Monthly accountability meetings. The monthly accountability meetings are so important because truly, if you have a leader that's operating in the red zone that truly didn't know any better, then you can coach them at that time. But more often, what we see happen is that senior leaders don't standardize, and senior leaders don't agree on what is our leadership bundle, what can we all agree as a senior leadership team to that we're going to hold people accountable to, and there are barriers, but there are not excuses. That, I'm going to excuse my Sue from rounding on her employees and relationship building this month. You know why? Because I just asked her to do a huge project. I just asked her to open a mental health hospital in 6 weeks. Okay, so she's going to be a little busy. Yeah, she's going to be busy. She's going to be crazy. She's got other relationships she needs to build. But then as a senior leader, I'm extremely transparent in that and saying, you know what, I had to ask Sue to not do this because I need her to do that. Not because she was all, oh, geez, I was all caught up in the whirlwind and my life is more important than the financial people. My life is more important than the med-surg leader or whatever, so I didn't do what I was supposed to do. No, right? So, determine what is our base and stick with it.
Yeah, and those monthly accountability meetings are so great for that. I don't even know how I was a senior leader for a decade without monthly accountability meetings. And I mean, when I contrast that
Yeah.
so huge. I
Yeah.
mean, I knew what was going on in a way different way
Yeah.
with each of my leaders and their departments and their goals and their results and all of that, because we had that special time.
Sure.
Yeah, big one. That's a big solution for this, to help you identify and rectify those red zones. You know, the other thing too is organizations can do is to just validate and transparently report what's really going on. So things like, okay, if there's a set standard that 30% or more of all employees attend employee forum from each department, 30% from every department, right? Then validate that, measure that, how many employees from each department showed up at the employee forums, and then report that to all leaders.
Yeah.
Maybe even the whole organization.
Yep.
You know, report that and show, you know, these ones didn't meet it.
Yeah.
I
Where
mean,
were you guys?
That's
what was going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's a standard that, you know, they're supposed to, you know, validate and feedback their employees related to how the service recovery program is going in each of their departments. And, you know, there's a requirement for that. Compare everybody, like, how are they doing? So I know sometimes people get really sensitive about that. Remember the first time we started like publicly reporting physician data by name and not some code and secret on a, you know, thing, you know, that wouldn't identify them for their infection rate compared to others. Yeah. So this is kind of like that, Jane. Sure. It's like, you know, I can tell you that quality in our medical staff improved when we started comparing when we had red zones in, you know, variation in our medical staff. One of the tactics that worked completely to do that. I mean, like, it was
you can't blame the weather anymore, doctor.
You know, it's, you know, like, why is Dr. So-and-so always, you know, the ones with the infections? Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
What's going on? So then we could say, okay, what's going on? And what can we do about it? And then you can see the ones that are always great and say, what are they doing? Right. And you can learn from them and say, how do we spread that to the ones from the blue zone to the red zone? Right. Absolutely. So, the data, I'm such a data geek, you know, but validation with data and then transparently reporting that data in a comparable way. And, you know, you got to really have a growth culture and mindset for that. Right, right. Because, you know,
it's got to be supportive. It can't be micromanaging.
It can't be micromanaging, and it can't be like, you're not really trying to harm people or embarrass them or whatever. And in a mature culture that wants to be great, you start to embrace transparency even when it shows you're not doing great. It creates the, okay, but now I know and I can get better, and now everyone knows that they're going to help me. I mean, I think that's the better way to go about it. Sure. It's not meant for shaming or embarrassment. No. So I wanted to bring that out too, but because we do believe in this tactic, but some cultures have a real hard time starting with that tactic.
Yeah, for sure.
And the best place to start, I think, is with your leadership.
Yep.
So let's start with us. Like most of these things, you know, we go first.
We go first. Always.
Always.
So 3 things: monthly accountability meetings. Right? So coaching senior leaders decide upon the baseline standards and hold people accountable to it. Trust but verify, validate, and transparent and public reporting of data by leader. So how do you keep yourself out of the red zone? All right. Attend a Capstone Leadership Summit, and we have 2 coming up in October. October 8th through the 10th in Eaton Rapids, Michigan, at our very favorite place to teach ever. So
we
agree on that.
We have seats available there, guys. There's still time to register.
Yes.
We still have space available.
Yes.
We're getting full at Hayward.
Yeah.
Are we full?
Forget I mentioned Hayward.
Yeah. We might be full.
Yes, we are full. We filled the room in Hayward, Wisconsin at the end of October.
Yes, that's fabulous.
So y'all come to Michigan.
I suppose
we miss
people
you.
could be on a waiting list. You know?
Oh, yeah, true.
I mean,
true.
really.
Reach out to us.
Occasionally we have people that at the last minute, you know, something happens.
Yeah.
And other people might be able to come on short notice. So maybe. Yeah.
So anyway, www.capstoneleadership.net. And we would love to see you, meet you in person. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye-bye now.